Paranormal Dimensions is a regular feature on Mondays on the Paranormal UK radio network.
Hello, this is Ronald Kinsella, and you're listening to the Paranormal UK Radio Network, the UK's biggest paranormal network, and this is Paranormal Dimensions with David Young.
Hello, and welcome to another Paranormal Dimensions. Thank you for that intro, Ronald. Now, Ronald's twin brother's going to be on the show today, Philip. But before we do that, I think I ought to mention that I've had a few people commenting on how they can get in touch with me. I suppose really what I should have done is actually read out my email address, probably on all the shows I've done in the past, but it never sort of occurred to me. But I usually put it on the Paranormal Dimensions Facebook page, how you can get in touch with me, and on the videos when they go out onto YouTube, etc. But anyway, if anyone would like to contact me about the shows, you know, if they've got any comments about a particular show, or if they've got any suggestions for guests or anything really, I mean, any criticisms, or even if you enjoy the show, please get in touch. You can get in touch with me at David Young 2QN, all one word, at yahoo.co.uk. I'll just repeat that. That's David Young 2QN at yahoo.co.uk. Okay? Right, fine, thank you. Okay, let's introduce today's guest, Philip Kinsella. He's got a new book coming out called Guardians of the Dead. Philip was on the show a few months back talking about his new UFO book, which is actually coming out in the new year. So his new book is actually coming out before that. So we've kind of done the shows around the wrong way, really, but it doesn't really matter. By January it won't matter, will it? But I think it's due out early in the new year, this UFO book. But Guardians of the Dead is out shortly. I think it's already out, actually, because it's selling well. Anyway, let's introduce Philip onto the show. Hello, Philip. Welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you, David, for having me. I'm really excited to come back on. It's an honour. Thank you.
No, it's my absolute pleasure. You were here, what was it, about 3 months ago? 3 or 4 months ago? And
yes.
We're going to be talking about a completely different subject. Last time it was about UFOs with your new UFO book.
Yes.
This time is your new book called Guardians of the Dead.
Yes.
But,
well, you know, I wanted to write this book because, I mean, I've written several other books on UFOs, and the first book that I had published was in 2007, which was Reaching for the Divine, and that was my very first published book through a publishing company which explored the psychic phenomena. And one of the things that people were asking me is, because I'm what people would call a medium, but I don't like the word medium, I prefer interpreter, because all we're doing is interpreting information on a different wavelength. If I was going to write another book, and I thought, well, you know, I've got a few interesting case studies in there, and I thought, let's go ahead and do it. So while we were on lockdown, as it were, I spent a lot of time completing the book, and it took me roughly around about 13 months to write and get together. So I was really pleased with the outcome of the book, and of expressing to the good public of just how clairvoyance is achieved. So I think that was the main focus of the book, along with a lot of the interesting cases of so-called life after death.
Yeah, the cover, it's got kind of like a guardian angel on the cover.
Yes.
It's actually quite a striking cover. How did you come up with that?
Well, actually, Anil Geddes Ward, he's another good friend of mine, and he, as most people know, he's a brilliant artist.
And he's also another presenter on the our network, isn't he?
Yes, that's right. Yes, and I said, Neil, do you have any pictures of angels? And he said, no, but I do know someone that does have a picture that he drew or did the portrait for, from a lovely lady called Linda Amalfi, and she allowed me to use her commission painting, which Neil had actually drawn, painted as it were, and of course that's where that led from, and of course I was delighted to be able to use the striking picture on the cover of the book. So it was very strange that things started to work all in sync when I was trying to put the book together, and I didn't feel any difficulty with the project whatsoever. And so I was blessed with that. So yeah, the book does deal also with angels and also with other people's encounters with discarnate spirits and angels, as it were. And I myself had two experiences with what we would call an angel, if that's the right terminology to use, because we always label something, and from their perspective we might be completely wrong. Yeah. But so that's how the book came about. Yeah, I was very delighted with it.
I'm glad you mentioned Reaching for the Divine, because I managed to get hold of a copy a couple of months ago. Because it's not that easy to get hold of, is it now? I don't believe.
No, well, when the publishers, Capelban Publishing Limited, brought that book out, along with a series of other books that I did, they only publish in paperback. They don't release them on Kindle. So I guess that most publishers will print off X amount of print run of books, and then what happens is when they're gone, they are hard to get hold of. So I'm delighted you got a copy of that. That was my first attempt at trying to explain the process of discarnate communication. Because I think most of the time, although that, I always thought that people would think I was completely and utterly bonkers, because as you know, I was more interested in the UFO research. And of course then, much later in my life, the psychic part started to develop, but I guess I had that as a kid, and I thought that most of the people would think that I was absolutely round the bend. There's the man that studies UFOs and now he talks to the dead. I thought I'd completely lose any dignity or respect that I had, but actually it was the reverse. And as we're discovering through our research, I think it's important for most of the public to realize that we are not just biological creatures with a sell-by date. There are a lot more than the flesh and blood and bones that we inhabit.
Indeed, yeah.
And I wanted to take this to another extreme, especially where consciousness is concerned, because that might explain a lot more about what goes on and why things happen, why people have certain experiences like deja vu, or they have an astral projection, or they have a near-death experience, or an out-of-body experience, or even an alien abduction. So I think most of the answers that we're looking for may perhaps be linked in our understanding of how human consciousness operates on these different levels of reality.
I'm sure that probably a lot of people in your clairvoyant world who come to see you probably think that is your prime objective, let's say. They may not actually know about your UFO interest. Would that be true?
Well, it's quite surprising. First of all, I'll just explain that, anyone can claim anything, but they always say that the proof's in the pudding. And my agreement with those on the other side that when this all activated in the late 90s, that I said to them that to those on the other side, that I want no nonsense. I want black and white facts where I can get them. And when people do come for reading, I'm very black and white. I won't fill in the spaces. I don't cold read, or I don't just throw things out. I just ask for yes or no, and I've learned how to harness or access that information from those who have crossed over. It isn't easy, but we do get there. And interesting, David, because when people come and see me for reading, they say to me afterwards quite coyly, oh, you study UFOs and you're into them, and you'll be surprised how many people I've met who, after reading, have told me that they have actually had an experience with a UFO, or they've had some other phenomena happen to them that they can't quite explain. So it's quite interesting that, you know, in the old days, you were either a medium was a medium, and there could be no connection whatsoever with UFO studies, and UFOs are just with the crowd of UFOs, and they can't be involved in psychic phenomena. So I think in the world we tend to have put things in boxes and separated them, when in actual fact my understanding is that there may be a very thin line behind these being connected on some level, even though they do come across as separate in nature, or, as I would say, different frequencies of awareness. So those people who have crossed over to the other side are loved ones. They are obviously in a different dimension from, let's say, that, you know, aliens that come through and infiltrate this world. But they seem to utilize the same method of interaction with the individual. So it is very interesting from that perspective. So yeah, as I always state to people, I don't have all the answers. I have hardly any, but we do have a theoretical model which we can work around in order to understand the phenomena a little bit more. And there will be some researchers who are dead against most of what I look at or are involved in, but it's important to have an open mind, and I certainly do have one. I'm not saying that I'm right, but, you know, we have to look outside the box, as it were, or rather think outside the box a little bit more, because we're still getting nowhere fast in understanding this phenomena, not only life after death, but also the UFO field of investigations.
Indeed, yeah. I mean, if aliens, I mean, we believe in aliens, but I know there's people out there that maybe don't, but if there are alien beings, then they're going to be spiritual beings as well, aren't they? The same as we are.
Yes, that's right. Yes, I mean, certain factions of them may have what we call the soul. And as you know, David, a lot of my research centered around the premise of cloning and the dangers of that. And this is obviously in the other research with regards to the greys. So the soul is something that I was very interested in, especially in my early days when death occurs and no one explains to you what it's about. It seemed almost like an embarrassment to lose someone and then having things left undone. But I think it's important for us as a species to understand that we are eternal, we're immortal, we have what they call a soul, and that there must be some purpose to our existence within this plane of reality. And this calls into question many other aspects of why we're here and why we're going through the difficulties that we're going through. But I believe that there may be a reason behind that, and I think that perhaps a lot of the things that was meant to have evolved on this planet has been hijacked by darker forces. And I think this is something that's been going on for centuries. I don't think this is something that's just happened. I think there's always been a power struggle on this planet for good and evil. And I think in most cases, when that does present itself, it brings out the best in us. But I always say to people, you know, it's only a temporary existence. We're only here for a very brief interlude before we return back to the other side.
Yeah, like this could be a part of the big lesson. Is that what you're saying? I mean, like last week on I had Frank Willis on the show, our good friend.
Oh,
Frank.
yes.
And he said something, you've got to have the equal, is it the like the yin and yang type of thing? You've got to have the good and the bad. They bounce off of each other. So,
yes, absolutely, because if we didn't understand pain, then we would have no understanding of joy. If we didn't have negativity, then we wouldn't understand positivity. And I think those polarities work very well. But unfortunately, on this planet, it's taken to the extreme. And this is where part of the book, my book, deals specifically with those darker energies. Now, in the human form, it's a must that we have these, different polarities of experiencing things as they come along, because it makes us stronger, and then sometimes it makes us weaker, but we learn by the experiences that we go through. But it's a very harsh plane to come to, the Earth plane. I should imagine jokingly that before we incarnated, a lot of souls over there would put up a banner and say 90% say no and 10% say yes. Yeah. So you've got to have a sense of humour with regards to
I'm not
the
going
way
back there.
No. Well, I think, to be honest with you, it's really quite amazing, because when we really look at the rawness of the experience, it is quite remarkable. I mean, and the other thing that we have to understand is that our genesis as human beings, we still don't understand where we came from. And a lot of the media outlets and the scientific establishments are absolutely resolute that we derive from the ape. But we can see that our genesis is remarkably more, let's put it this way, engineered. I think that perhaps the hominid was used as a form to create man as we are known. But again, I think that a lot of history is wrong, and I think a lot of the people within the scientific academia are, if they don't follow a certain protocol, then they're out of a job.
Yeah.
So we can see that, for me, I don't know why, I'm just a very curious individual. I wanted to find out what we were, where we come from, where I was before I was. Is there a heaven? Is there a hell? Is there another side? And this is why I think having a curious mind, perhaps for many people, opens up other dimensions of reality. And talking specifically, David, about the mind, we have to understand that it's not something that's in a box. I believe that mind is consciousness. And I always give this simple analogy, like the mobile phone. People say, well, how do those on the other side connect with you? And I said, well, I have a slight theory about that. I said, imagine your mobile phone. You've got the physical hardware. Let's pretend in a crude way that this is the brain. And that phone receives signals of your choosing. You choose who you want to connect with, and you have information brought into the phone. And we also send information out. And so the software is recording, and you're sending messages out, getting them in. And when the phone claps out, when it's no longer needed, the signal is still pure, even if the mechanism itself is damaged. So I think in our human form as a vessel for conscious awareness, that consciousness actually descends into this field of reality, mutates through into the physical form, and then starts recording its experience from birth till death. And I get a lot of people saying to me, well, there can't be another side because I can't remember where I was from. And I normally say to them, well, that's cool, because if you did remember where you were from, you wouldn't do anything in this life. You'll just sit there and vegetate until you die.
What would be the point? That's right, yeah.
Well, yeah, and also, we've got to remember that, within this existence, we're moving from one point to the next without actually stopping to appreciate the moment, because it's gone. The only way that we can appreciate that is through memory, and if we have a good memory to go back and relive that experience. But as we understand, David, that when we die, all of the accumulated memories and experiences, and even if someone has Alzheimer's or some type of neurological dysfunctionality, the mechanism is still recording the experiences. So upon death, the body, the vehicle is no longer needed, and the narrow field of conscious awareness is brought back and liberated into its original state of awareness. So it's almost like a switch turning.
Actually, you must be psychic, because I was actually thinking about Alzheimer's and things like that just before you said it. So,
well,
because I was thinking, because when our own mind, our human mind, starts to fade, it's not in everybody, obviously. I mean, but there is a good percentage of us that do suffer from that in later years. It doesn't seem to affect the spiritual self.
No, it's like if you lose a limb, or if you've got some form of terrible disability, when we pass back to the other side, energy cannot be destroyed, so it's pure. So consciousness, operates on its higher frequency of awareness. One lady made me laugh once when she said to me, well, is there enough room in heaven? And I said, well, if you take your mobile phone, the signaling doesn't need any room whatsoever. It operates on higher frequencies of awareness that commands no room. And of course, I don't think she quite got it, bless her, but I think, you and I and many other people could understand that we're dealing with two different polarities. One is physical, one is energy. And of course, even the devices we create today, the physical apparatuses, if we need them to work, we need to give them power. Now, I'm not saying that we're all electric,
No.
but I think we're far more complex than that. But, we need some kind of vessel to interact with, to connect with, rather like a deep-sea diver that goes into the ocean needs an apparatus to survive in. Yes,
we're all operating on Wi-Fi nowadays, aren't we?
Yes,
some would say that's all dangerous and everything, and I suppose to a certain extent, is there danger in it? I don't know. But we're all surrounded by invisible Wi-Fi nowadays, and I guess it's much the same as kind of like the spiritual world. It's there, but you can't see it.
That's right, and it needs an instrument to connect with, and this is why you're correct on the other apparatus, the physical apparatuses that we create. As they send signals out into the ether, it may disrupt our biological or cellular structure, as it were, because as a human organism, the cells that are in our bodies are designed to replicate and repair themselves. If those cells, which are energy, are affected by a different force of energy, then that can disrupt the physical system. But in terms of the Wi-Fi network to heaven, yes, we don't seem to have a problem with that. I mean, sometimes we do encounter problems when we are reading for someone. There are some people I can't read for. It doesn't mean to say that they're going to die, because most people automatically assume that because you can't read for them that their time's up. But our understanding is that the different frequencies of awareness are interesting, because it's not just the dead, as we call them, who are operating on these higher frequencies which surround us, but this may explain also alternative dimensions of awareness that are not human, that also may occupy the same space, but higher frequencies or lower frequencies, depending on their origin. So this is leading my research into areas where the human brain, is the conduit, is merely the connection, and is the organic matter that facilitates awareness in this form. So it's rather like, just stepping into a body for a short period of time, and then the soul goes out again. Unfortunately, in this existence, we do feel pain, and, you see a lot of atrocities, a lot of warmongering, a lot of hatred, violence, and it's very sad, because I believe, although it can't be proven at all, we can only base this on theory, but I do believe that the planet Earth was and had been created as an expression of free will, and I think that I'll just say I think it's been hijacked, and I think it's been hijacked for a very long time by a lot of darker forces, because they are also evident. It's not something that's science fiction. Even throughout history and through the ancient Sumerian and Aztecs, and going back into the ancient languages, we find that there are demigods and there are evil forces that always wanted to control. So, it's hard to get your head round all of that.
Oh, certainly is, yeah. I mean, that would take us back to, we're talking about reptilians again, wouldn't it? They're supposed to be controlling a lot of of all the evil things that are going on from a different dimension.
Yes, I mean, a lot of research has been done on that. And, when I first came into the UFO movement many, many, many years ago, and I heard references to reptilians, I used to think, oh, what a load of old rubbish. But, when you've experienced them, one of them was in 1989 for the abduction I had. There were 3 of them. They didn't say anything, but the feeling was awful and oppressive. And I saw one when I was having healing with and this one was different from the others. I felt more empathy towards it. I didn't communicate. There was never any communication. It was just a visual. It just turned up when I was having some healing being done on me. But, most people would reject that outward and think, oh, what a load of rubbish. I mean, but as you know, David, me and my twin Ronnie, we deal with practicality. We've got our feet definitely on the floor.
Sure.
And, and the only way that we deal with it is through, analysis and understanding and research. But they are true. And I think there are some forces that are operating through certain people, because on a psychic level, people can be infiltrated quite easily. Psychic attack is something that people used to laugh about, and they're finding that, within the CIA and other departments, that this is an area of research that is under investigations. And if people don't believe that, then they just have to look at the remote viewing programs that was done in the 80s with the CIA, where gifted psychics were trained to remote view. And that also is an extension of human consciousness that could travel backwards in time or forwards in time, or to any key location that the individual was asked to study or investigate. So we can see that the whole thing's being covered, and the public are left with the drips and drabs of the almost like nonsensical stuff that the media are trying to make it all appear like. I mean, the same with UFOs. I mean, when people talk about UFOs, one of the things the media do is they poo-poo it. And of course, this doesn't help in us trying to ascertain what we're actually dealing with. In fact, it makes it harder for the researcher to try and, convince people that this is what's happening. But I think we're in an age now where a lot of people are waking up, David,
Yeah. Well, we get a lot of fear thrown at us from the television about this COVID virus. And that kind of makes me think about, if we think about the people that are actually really in charge and control the governments and everything, and it seems to me that they're just trying to throw all that fear out there. I mean, this is only my own theory. It's my own thoughts. There's probably a lot of people out there shouting, saying, oh no, that can't be true. But from a lot of the evidence I've seen, a lot of this fear that is actually being manufactured on purpose.
Well, yes, and if we look at this, I mean, we've got the wonderful David Icke. A lot of people, I admire the man. I admire all my peers.
I mean, everyone used to think. I was very doubtful about him a few years back, but after reading a few of his books and listening to him speak, I think the man's a genius.
He's an absolutely awesome man, and I've read all his books. I'm reading his new one now called The Answer, and it's really very good. But there was also Alex Jones in America, and if we go back and remember that he was actually warning a lot of people that there was going to be an economic collapse and that they had to get their money out and get out quick.
Yeah.
Well, they shut him down because he actually infiltrated a certain ritual that certainly happens once a year, and this was a ritual with a lot of the rich and powerful people called the Cremation of Care, and he actually filmed this and he went public with this, and unfortunately the poor guy has now been removed, much like David Icke.
Yeah.
Now the big question is this, David. This is the big question. Everyone is allowed to have an opinion. Everyone is allowed to watch whatever programs they want to watch. So the big question is why did the media remove them so quickly and forcibly? And even with David Icke, removing his books from Waterstones. Well, if you choose to buy someone's book, then you want to buy it because you want to read it.
Yeah.
But we can see that this control is paramount because these guys and many others were onto something, and freedom of speech is being taken away from us. The ability to think outside the box is being taken away from us. Researchers are being, intimidated or shut down, as it were. So I believe that what we're seeing here is not good, and most people will shout out instantly, conspiracy theory, and I've always stated that conspiracy is merely a psychological weapon to turn the finger of doubt upon the inquiring mind. Now, it's no conspiracy. The people out there in the world have to, be aware of the fact that this is really happening. And the only way that this could happen is by promoting fear, and fear promotes control.
Yeah.
And, I think we're all, this is the really horrible, nasty thing about it. People will jump on the bandwagon and say, you're wrong, it's this. And I'll say to them, well, I'm not disputing that. But if you look and see what's happening around you at the moment, it's quite frightening, especially when we deal with the real statistics of what this thing is doing and how many people are really affected, and, and seeing how this is orchestrated. So I don't like it, David, and I will say to you, for the first time in my life, and I will mean this, the first time in my life in the world arena, I feel quite frightened, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well, it is scary. I've met quite a few interesting people, and I actually feel a strength from this. I've actually, as you know, I've kind of got on the bandwagon trying to sort of spread the word that, of what the truth is, or at least asking people to try and do your own research. Look into it. Don't just accept what you're being told on the television and the radio, because a lot of it is just plain lies. You know, and I'm talking about worldwide. I'm not talking about just this country. You're being lied to, basically. And if you don't believe me, do your own. Check it out yourself, because we are. You know, I've published quite a lot of stuff that it just proves it 100% on my page.
And absolutely. And you know, also, if we go back as well, not everything on this planet is a conspiracy. Let's draw time backwards. Let's go to 9/11. We had the amazing and wonderful Dr. Judy Wood, who wrote the book, Where Did the Towers Go? And she's a scientist. She is a black and white scientist. She's got her feet on the ground. She deals with facts, and she actually has shown that those towers did not come down by, the fuel from the aircraft. Or if we go back even more, we see Princess Diana. This is the thing. Most people will cry out and say, it's conspiracy theory. No, the public will only cry out when there is injustice and when they know they can smell a rat. And this is exactly the time. And we see these repeated themes all the time. Not everything is a conspiracy, but the ones that are brought forward tells all of us that there's something wrong. Yeah. And I think that from that we can denounce that there is a problem, because if you've got people that's raising their arms up, it's not because they want their freedom, it's because they know that their freedom is being taken away, and the freedom that we had is now being subjugated completely. Mm-hmm. So if you've got the likes of David Icke and Alex Jones and many other wonderful researchers, Andrew Johnson also, and many others, if you're seeing that these people are, crying out and saying, hang on just a minute, there's a problem, their voices are being drowned out to almost silence. Yeah. But I think it's done the reverse, David. I think it's actually, made more people connect with these researchers to find out just what is going on, like yourself. They want to know what evidence, what data do you have? Well, as we all know, the bigger machine, the system that operates all of us, that controls all of us, will do anything and everything in its power to subjugate the individual or the researcher. And being involved with ufology, not so much the psychic aspect, because that doesn't present any danger to the system. I think the danger is the things that really affect us here. One is the UFO phenomenon, and two, a lot of the world events that sniff a lot of suspects as to their origins. With regards to the viruses, I myself personally believe that AIDS and Ebola were manufactured genetically. Yeah. I look at the other illnesses like cancer and all things, they're a natural thing that we're still trying to understand, although, dare I say it, maybe some progress has been elsewhere that the public aren't made aware of. But we see these repeated themes where even in the medical establishment alone, where a lot of pioneering researchers and brilliant doctors are, silenced because they found new ways of curing things when other people just want to control them and not cure them. Very dangerous grounds to walk on, and highly speculative, because anyone would turn around and say, well, you're barking up the wrong tree. Yeah. Well, I don't think that we are. And I think that the individual on a personal level knows or feels themselves what is right and what is wrong. But certainly at the moment, we're seeing a real uprising of anger and disruption. And notice also how they tried to bring in a lot of other disruptions to try and divert the attention away from the illness.
That's true. Yeah.
To try and create a lot of unrest and trying to, turn it round the other way. But it's terrible.
I mean, one thing that's been quite clear to me: what big major terrorist events have happened over the last 6 months while we've had all this virus thing? None. And you think, well, what the hell's going on there? Because they've had an ideal opportunity to make some sort of a big attack, haven't they?
Yes.
So you've got to sort of kind of look at that and think, And obviously these conspiracy theories go back, I suppose they kind of started with the Kennedy assassination, didn't they? Or maybe there may have been some others before that, but that's kind of where it really started.
Yes.
Because there were things that just didn't seem to add up. With the rifle and the aim and the area and where the coal went and everything. And people started asking questions about that. And of course there was a big supposedly a big FBI investigation into it, and they come up with all the answers saying, oh, it was only Lee Harvey Oswald. But there's still questions even today about that that just don't make sense.
Yeah, again, you see these higher powers, they're very clever in covering up their tracks, but not that clever because there'll be someone somewhere who will dig up the evidence. I mean, I think the conspiracy theory really started with the Roswell, New Mexico UFO crash.
Yeah, that's true. That's it.
And I always joke here and say, David, that, if it was that top secret, why the hell weren't the military, tracking the item, the object, the secret weather balloon, when it came down? It was left there for a rancher to find. And the other thing is that made me laugh was that, again, that top secret, they had Jesse Marcel kneeling in front of the supposed wreckage of this device. Not that top secret then, if they're plastering it on the front pages of the newspaper.
And you can see the incredulous look on his face, as if to say, well, this ain't it.
Yeah, he knew what was going on. And, through all of the testimony, in its rawest, clearest state, which was the beginning of Roswell. I'm not saying about all the stuff that happened afterwards and people come forward, but certainly in the story itself and how the things unfolded, categorically proves that they can do this time and time again. But I think now we are finding that we have a voice and we're a lot stronger within ourselves. But it will be interesting to see how this fares out with regards to this episode, because getting people to take a vaccine that hasn't been tested, because we don't know its long-term overall effects of what it will do to the body, and then covering themselves by saying, well, if anything does happen, that they won't be held responsible. I think that that's awful.
Well, it's not awful, it's criminal, isn't it?
Well, it is absolutely, but you see how they cover themselves over and over again. I mean, it's like, what really annoyed me with regards to the psychic phenomena is that when I had gone on television many years ago, national television programs, most of them were okay, but what they would do is that they would edit out, if it's pre-recorded, the stuff they didn't want the public to know about, and then if it was live, that they would just boulder on in there and wouldn't give you a chance to say what you wanted to say. So this control is not just in one area, it's actually all over. It's in the medical, agricultural, scientific, it's all over.
I mean, the doctors, like on our television, for instance, they're just told what to say. They're being told by the World Health Organization, which is actually run by somebody who's actually nothing to do with the medical trade thing at all. And it's all to do with Bill Gates and his vaccines. I mean, I won't be taking the vaccine either, like you.
No.
I mean, obviously, everyone's got their own choice out there, to whether they want to or not, but I certainly won't be taking it.
Well, the thing is, at the end of the day, we have the freedom and the choice to make. Now, it's my body, it's your body, and, I think a lot of people are going to be very nervous to be, and see how quick it's coming along. I mean, I always said that this thing, it's so fast moving. And of course, the other thing that made me laugh about this was that they said prepare for a second wave. Well, of course there will be a second wave, because
it's all about preparing for a third wave now.
Yeah, well, we're going into winter, and more people die in winter, and you know what they're going to turn around and say? They're going to just label it COVID-19, when more people die with the flu that isn't registered. And a lot of people are aware of that. And, most people will say, this is the horrible thing because it's turning one person against another, and this is what the system wants. This is what it's always done.
Divide and conquer, of course it is.
Yes,
correct. They're continually putting people in boxes, aren't they? Now it's mask wearers against non-mask wearers, and then we've got COVID marshals against just the normal people and things like that. It's just... they're continuously putting these... it's the same as Black Lives Matter, wasn't it? They put black against white, although that's always been an issue anyway, but they've actually tried to capitalise on that.
Yes, and the thing is, at the end of the day, I embrace all nationalities, and I always have done. I'm very proud of all of them, and I think it's really horrible. This is the other thing that the media do that's really nasty, because I think they should be held accountable and brought to a court of law, because they're the ones that's promoting this. They're the ones that's always on AOL or any news feed bringing this to the attention of the public, and of course it will rile people up, because the way that they twist the facts in order to create that stimulation of anger and contempt.
Well, we've seen that. We've seen that today from there's a Trafalgar Square thing that I was at yesterday.
Oh yes, I saw the images.
It'll be last week by the time this goes out. But the way the media have portrayed it is that the people there started the trouble. In actual fact, there was, I would say, 45,000 people in Trafalgar Square there for a peaceful meeting, because they want questions answered about the COVID.
Oh yes.
That's basically what it's about. And violent police came in and broke it up.
Yes, and I'll tell you, I saw
the police that caused all the trouble.
Yeah, and this is what they do. This is what they continuously do, David. They will always twist it and turn it to make it look like this is exactly engineered to the way that they want it. So, at the end of the day, who's fooling who, and I think we will know as this disaster becomes more prevalent as we go, into next year. We're going to see exactly where this leads, but you'll get a lot of people now who are frightened. You can understand they're scared, and and I think that this is all.
Which in itself, again, I think is criminal, because the media have scared the life out of a lot of old people.
Of course,
they're terrified to even go out to the shops, because they think they're going to catch a virus.
Yes, that's right. And this is the thing. This is the whole thing of what the media do, not just with psychic phenomena, UFO research, cryptozoology, or anything like that. They will bring it in, and then they will tear it to pieces, and they'll operate it the way that they want it to be seen, to tell the public, look, they'll make the public believe what the machine wants them to believe. So these higher operatives, the people in power, people like David Icke, God love him, are right, because he's been proven right time and time again. People used to laugh at him, but then of course they discovered that a lot of his research was panning out. And
people used to laugh at him because they were told to laugh at him by the media.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. But the man needs an award for all that he's doing, but he's such an advocate, and people admire him and love him, because if you read his books, and for those people out there who don't believe in him, read his books, many other authors' books, look into it, and you'll begin to understand just how much sense they're making. It's all very well for someone just casting aside and saying, oh, I don't believe it. You need to research it before you can make that analysis of the situation. You need to look into it before you can be even qualified to state what you think is right and what is wrong.
Yeah. Even try to listen to a bit of video that he's made. I mean, I know of a lot of it's been taken off of YouTube now because they're trying to shut him up. But if you can try and listen to him for 10 minutes about any subject, you'll know what he's talking about. He's not a crazy man. I think he's a genius in actual fact.
Oh yes, and I've always told
some people will criticise me for saying that, but I think that they don't read or listen to anything that he says.
No. Well, I read his Robots Rebellion, and that was one of the first books I read of his many years ago. And you know what? I was left astounded. Because I thought, this guy, I want to give this guy a big hug, because he's right on my page. And, it's like, so, thank God for people like, yourself and many others, and David Icke and Alex Jones of the world.
Well, I'll never try to put myself in their league, but in my small way, I'll do what I can.
Well, yeah, I think, we're all important. As I've stated in Guardians of the Dead, we're all important. It doesn't matter if you're rich or you're poor, or you're clever or you're not. At the end of the day, we're all here for an experience. And I think in some way, it's leading, this human experience is going through some extraordinary times, and that a lot of souls here are seeing this whole war thing being played out. And remember, although it appears modern, if we go back into the Second World War with Hitler, I mean, it's rather like in their day, it's like today, they didn't know any differently.
Yeah.
A lot of the people in those times were, engineered and controlled and mentally controlled and a lot of people, unfortunately, on the other side of the coin, met their deaths not even knowing where they were going.
Yeah.
So, we try to learn from the past, but maybe a lot of people in this time now is waking up to the realization that there's something not quite right.
Absolutely.
I mean, I just feel that myself personally, I can't make any claims to anything, but I've had a very bad feeling, and it did remind me, and I will say here for the record, it did remind me of the Nazis, and I know it sounds wicked, but that's exactly what I thought, the total control, because, in those days it was like, what, spying on the neighbour, spying on this person, tit for tat, let's phone up the establishments and tell them that this person's got so many people in the house. And the other thing that we
again, that's another division, isn't it? What we're about.
Yeah, and also pubs. I mean, let's put it this way. I mean, you can have so many people in a pub, but as my brother always said, viruses do not pander to time. And now what they're doing is that they're making out that all those people like yourself that are in London are responsible in spreading the disease itself.
And
so
also it's young against old, isn't it? They're saying it's all the young people, you're going to make your granddad sick and all sorts of things like that,
Yes, that's right. Terrible, isn't it? Absolutely terrible. And you'd be shot for even opening your mouth. And of course, that was back in the Second World War, where people were frightened to talk because they might have someone that would report them or kill them or attack them.
Yeah. Another crazy thing I think, you see people walking around with these plastic visors over their face. Now, do they not think that the virus can go underneath that visor and all around it? You'd still breathe it in if it's around.
Well, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, at the end of the day, you as the individual make up your prognosis of what you believe. And, I respect what other people believe, but I have my own opinion. And I think that's important, that I will govern my life through my opinions, whether rightfully or wrongfully, but a deeper part of me is telling me there's something not quite right. Yeah. And, I know that then we'll all be arrested, David. They'll all come round and get us and try and shut us all up.
I think I might have came close to it yesterday. But,
they'll shut us down.
I tried to be better to get arrested. Well, no, I didn't. No, I didn't really. But I think... anyway, I think what you've got to look at is George Orwell and Huxley. They were right all those years ago. Start thinking about things like that. Now, they had close contacts in the Freemasons. So a lot of that in the Freemason connections is all what's going on today. So I think if you really want, I think anyone listening to this, I know we've gone off subject a little bit, but we haven't really, because it's all kind of connected.
Well, the truth is that in the end of the day, if you look back into history, you'll find that there's always been, this occult connection. And this is something that I was very intrigued about, especially with, and it's true because, most of the leading scientists that is never mentioned within the academia books were connected and interested in the occult, but you never read about that in a good way, not all in a bad way, I must stress there. But you'll find that a lot of these very rich and powerful people are very much linked with these darker forces because, as we understand it, these darker energies promise these individuals so much wealth and power, but it is just illusionary. And we can even see through the media machine, especially within the music industry and the acting profession, how a lot of people have stated that they've sold their soul to the devil for a rich life and, being controlled, and then being destroyed afterwards if they come forward or they want out. So I think we're finding a very disturbing connection link of this control and this power. And, you don't need me to sanction that. As we said before, go out there and research it and read the books, and you'll find that these forces are real. They do exist. But I think a large proportion of us who are on that kind of healthy mental level of understanding are protected anyway, because, as I've said in Guardians of the Dead, we do have what we call angels and spirit guides, which are a reality. And this is why it's important to explore areas of the psyche. We have to be careful because some people can be easily drawn down the road to somewhere they don't want to go, if you know what I mean, David.
Yeah.
And there are other people who are strong-willed within their mindset, and they know what is right and what is their reality. So, it's a very complex subject, but as long as people understand that they're more than just biological machine with a sell-by date, that they have purpose and design, even if it's just loving the family or, doing the things that they love doing. It's not all about climbing that greasy pole to fame and success.
Yeah.
I think it's important for people to understand that going back into our memories of the times when we spent with the people we loved who are no longer with us, with, watching the TV or having a laugh or sitting there having a meal, these are the things. I think love is one of the biggest forces in the universe, and nothing can destroy love. Nothing can get between it.
They've tried their best this year, haven't they? Trying to keep families apart and everything like that. I think unfortunately, I believe that the media has really frightened a lot of people, and I think I'd say to anyone out there, don't believe everything you hear on the media, because just go out and start asking your own questions about it. Don't just take everything as what you hear, because it isn't.
Well, David,
I know that for a fact, because I've done enough studying of it.
Yeah, the other thing, David, is that it's the fear that controls. Now, fear promotes a lot of changes within someone's mindset. And when you promote fear, you start to disable that person's mental programming.
Absolutely.
And we see this constantly on the news feeds. There is nothing but, it says on AOL sometimes they'll put something up and they'll say something tragic and they'll say, warning, explicit images, but they'll still want you to watch it.
Yeah.
And this is a theme that I've found constantly, where there's negativity, and there may be just something small in there to just lighten the mood, but not enough. And the same with these big channels, TV channels, breakfast shows. They're also, one-sided with everything.
Oh, yeah.
And it's disgusting, it's sick. I think that, the way that I see it is that, us underground, the people in the underground movement, which I love very much, are aware of these things. And it's like, I think a lot of people are now waking up, and I think that's a good thing as well, because people are saying, hang on a minute, just a moment, what the hell am I doing?
I know. You've only got to see about everything to do with President Trump is bad, isn't it? Have you never noticed that on the TV? Everything is against him. And if you go on the internet and you look at other stuff, and you see all the good things that he's doing, you can see YouTube videos all over the place, which never get on the television.
Well, he's not of their blood, is he?
No,
he's not their kin.
That's right. And of course, he's threatened to take out a lot of paedophiles, and he has been doing a lot of things like that. But you don't see all that on the television.
No, it's all propaganda. They want to control it. They want to bring it the way that they want it to work.
I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I'm a Trump. We live in England, so being, President Trump doesn't make a lot of difference to us. But we see a very one-sided reporting all the time, and that's sort of on every channel. So.
Yeah, and it's the same here with everything. I mean, that was revealed to me all those many years ago, when, I had, been invited onto these programs, and then I was shocked at how they operated, and it struck me that this is just one area, and that's to do with UFOs, where, you are slammed down, and I couldn't understand it. I couldn't get my head around it. And then, of course, you read the newspaper reports of other experiences and encounters, and they did pretty much the same with me and my twin brother with several UFO experiences that we had that were reported to them. They got wind of and always put something detrimental in, like, that they write science fiction, or they like so you can see what they're trying to do straight away, from taking your good personality and make it look like you're some kind of geek.
Yeah.
And yet,
which is what they've done with David Icke as well, isn't it?
Well, that's right.
And several other people.
Yes, there's many other people. I mean, it's, David is a shining example of a truth seeker, and there are many other good souls out there doing the same thing. We use David as an example because of what they've done to him, because he was getting bigger and he was getting more famous and more well-known. He's not into any of that. He just wants, and you can see the passion and drive is within his message.
Yeah, he lives in a little flat on the Isle of Wight. He doesn't live in a mansion.
Absolutely. Yeah, made me laugh. He did a documentary, didn't he? He said, come and see my mansion that I live in. And I loved that. And I thought, you go, David.
Yeah,
you tell him, David.
I think he drives a little Mazda or something, doesn't he? He doesn't drive drive around in a Rolls Royce or anything.
Well, he's here to do his job as a soul. He's incarnated within this form, and he is there to deliver the message that he was meant to do, obviously, when he wrote his life chart on the other side. And I know that David's had quite a few psychic experiences, quite a number of them, and I think that's wonderful that he promoted that. And in a time, of course, when most people couldn't get their heads around it,
yeah, that's what sparked him off, wasn't it, actually?
Yes,
he had this great awakening thing.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. And it was the awakening. Most people do go through the awakening. And I think that the world is going through a mass awakening now because through what's happening, they've actually stopped. Because I think, I believe that we've been in this kind of like dream world, going round in a wheel, and most people going out to do a job that they don't really want to do. They have to pay their taxes. They try to breaking up family units because the family member or the working members of the family are out at work all the time for long hours, even weekends now. And I think people have said, hang on just a minute, what the hell is going on here? And I think this disruption has not only served a bad thing, I think it's also served a good thing as well. Because I think a lot of people through the lockdown have woken up. I do feel greatly sorry for those that have had mental distress and those people who weren't able to see.
To be honest, I think we've all suffered that to some extent or other.
Yes, we have.
Be it strong or other people that are the absolute extreme, and there's loads of suicides, haven't there, this year?
There have.
More than usual.
This is, but I also believe that is shocking, and we're aware of that. But I also believe that a lot more people, have taken hold of their life. They've realised that, what am I doing? And it's changed a lot of attitudes. Unfortunately, it has had a devastating effect upon many, many people that they do not regularly promote on media. They will not address these facts to the general public because they don't want to see their hand being played in this, you see.
Yeah, sure.
So I think that's probably why, once again, the media is doing its famous thing by turning the other way. Nothing to see here. Carry on and do as said. Yeah. I wrote a letter to the Prime Minister about, me, certain things with what happened to me and to do with like the redundancies and how companies are using this to, the lockdown and also the furlough to clear out their staff. And, I got no response back.
None at all.
Any time that I've written any times I've written with regards to any political issue, is silence. But if you write something that does not in any way, sound threatening to them, and it wasn't threatening, it was just quite logical, then you'll get some response. I mean, the response I got back at one point many years ago was to do with Her Majesty, in a good way, not in a bad way, because of what the press were trying to do to her, and I got a response. But anything that goes against them, they don't want to know. And the same with UFOs. Again, we, I'm linked with NUFORS, David, National UFO Reporting Service. We'd written to the Parliament, to a very high up person there, asking for their help to join with us, to connect with us, so that we can share ideas honestly, openly, and theoretically. To connect with us. I got nothing back, silence. So we can see a pattern forming here.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. It's that Kinsella again.
I don't know, they'll just cast me aside as some crazy person, but, at the end of the day, we're all important, and we all have our passions and our drive, David Icke and many others, mine is for the truth, and like you, because if they were straightforward with us, you know, then it would be a different world, but they're not. And I think that, well, things will be revealed going into next year. I think a lot more is going to come out about this, definitely.
Oh, definitely. In fact, as I understand it, there's quite a few legal challenges in the process that people, there's some big names getting involved, and they're going to be asking questions which they will have to answer.
Yes, yes.
Anyway, I guess we better leave that alone. let's get back to sort of a bit more onto your book. I'll tell you what, you know, Jill, my wife, she had a near-death experience back in 2000, before I knew her. I think she might have spoken to you a little bit about this in the past. But she actually died twice on the way to hospital. I'm not sure if I've mentioned this before on the show, I might have done, but she kind of, I actually asked her before this show started, have you got any questions for Philip? And she said, yeah, I'd really like to know why I was given the choice to come back. Because that's what she was actually given the choice to come back, and she decided to come back.
Well, a lot of people who have a near-death experience do report having the choice to come back or not. And from my understanding is that the soul itself, before it incarnates, it has what we call a life plan or a life chart. It's rather like a computer game that's been designed, and when you get on the game, you have the choice of going right or left or meeting this character or that character. Unfortunately, in life, we don't have the option of starting over again. But I think that when someone has a near-death experience, and they are about to cross over, the choice is given. Now the individual can submit and say, I don't want to carry on anymore. I think I've finished all that I've done and I've learned, and they may have that choice. But the thing is, though, that a lot of times there will be someone on the other side, sometimes a family member or a spirit guide or the image of a religious icon, who will step forward and tell the person it's not your time, or, you know, you still need to get things done. So it certainly proves to us, on a theoretical level, that we do have some type of life mapping, although we have free will that comes into play with regards to that. What's interesting is that most people who have had what they call a near-death experience, because they transcend both space and time, and I have to point out that transcendence period is right around us, because there's signals around us now. Those on the other side are operating around us right this moment on different frequencies of awareness. The person that's had the experience comes back, and they come back and tell the tale that they've survived what we call death. But at the same token, I think that we have that life mapping in us, and that's why we have feelings of deja vu. So it is evident that we have a purpose or a mission here. And I always like the example of Shakespeare when he says life is like a stage. And I think to some degree that, we're going through a rehearsal here, and the real life is on the other side. And the famous children's author and spiritual philosopher, Professor Clive Staples Lewis, stated that this is just the Shadowlands. He calls this the Shadowlands. Real life hasn't begun yet. And you'll find this with a lot of people who, even in intellectual capacities, kind of like look at life like just a walkthrough or as a passing through. So I think our choices are from a soul level and not from a human level, because we have to understand, that although we adopt the human form, consciousness is, we always think we're just human and that's it. But I think that there are other spheres of dimensions of awareness that we can at some point incarnate into. And of course, we may have a blank canvas going into that experience until we've completed the course. So it's interesting, isn't it, to see that, we do have some type of life mapping, even though we have free will and we can muck things up. And we have the choice when we pass over. But certainly the other thing that's interesting is that when people have come back from what they call an NDE, near-death experience, is that it changes them, that they have a greater or higher perspective of life. And this is very much evident with powerful people who've been involved in lots of money and wealth and control. And you hear a lot of these stories of them coming back and they just give everything up because they realize at that point that they are more than just this life, that money isn't everything, that it is about what you feel inside your soul with love and compassion and understanding on a universal level.
Yeah. I mean, I will just point out that Jill was absolutely convinced because she was actually told she died twice. So it wasn't just a case that she thought she might have died. You know, she was actually told she died twice. And it was actually a serious asthma attack. It wasn't an accident, I think. And she was being taken to the hospital. She died twice on the way to the hospital. And even the ambulance men, once they actually inquired about her afterwards. And they came to visit her in hospital.
Yeah, and the sequence of events is derived from memory. Now, if, as we have been led to believe from certain prominent neurologists, that it is just the brain's way of making you feel good about dying, well, if the brain is being starved of oxygen, it's not going to play out a coherent series of events. And this is something that we understand most definitely, because if the body is threatened, then it will do everything it can to survive, but it will not in any way, if oxygen's been deprived from the brain, start to promote these images that run in sequence. And of course, the profound effects, there's been cases where people have had, cancer, life-threatening illnesses, and when they've passed and come back, they've been cured. And I believe that the reason that they're cured is because the energy signature of their soul has been brought and matched back up to its correct vibration frequency, and when it reconnects back into the body, it's almost like a conduit. It just changes the entire biological structure, which is energy. So, we are just energy, basically, oscillating energy cells of memory that is, existing in this reality. So the mind is a very powerful tool, and it's the window to the Godhead. And this is what I tried to promote in Guardians of the Dead. People say, oh, didn't they create something wonderful there from their imagination? And I really hate that word, because imagination sounds like it's a little box that's open now and again in the head. And, when it's not, everything imagined is brought from the field of creation itself. And we can sometimes utilize it into this physical reality, although in some instances it does take some time. So we can see that perhaps some other intelligences are able to manifest themselves instantly through thought and then go out again very quickly, because they've learned how to harness that mental processing. But we can see that we're living in a system that is doing its darndest to shut us down, to close down our ability to think, to create, to love. Instead, we're living in a system that is controlling, disrupting, and creating violence, and also stagnating human thinking. And I think that in itself is criminal. And we can go back into the past, especially within certain religious departments where most people lived in fear if they didn't follow the passages to the Bible to the T. And even in the old days, people were locked up if they didn't attend church, or they were punished. So we can see that this indoctrination of belief, of control, has been since the beginning of our Genesis, as it were. But, as I say within the book, that you are God and God is you, and that we're all part of everything. And once you start believing that belief opens up that reality within you and starts to make you shine. And I think a lot of the darker forces can see that in people, and they want to douse that light. And I think that's what they're trying to do over and over again. It's really crazy and incredible to believe that this world has not still got it right, that we're still no nearer in being able to understand what love means, because we're dealing with not only the pandemic at the moment, but we're also dealing with environmental collapses, and we're dealing with a lot of the problems with the Earth's, biosphere, because the Earth is suffering, the resources are being depleted, and the planet's dying. And of course, I always say that the planet itself will rebel. Mother Nature will have her way in the end. She will.
I mean, I'll just say with Jill, she actually had the feeling of so much love, like you mentioned.
Yes.
There. And at the time, it was before I actually knew her. This is about 2020. And she was actually going through a really bad time in her life as well. And so if she would have had the decision herself, she probably would have made the decision not to come back because of her life was so bad, you know.
Yeah.
So, but she decided that she had to come back. So.
Yeah, I think from a soul level, and also we have to understand that those that reside on what we call the other side are loving, because the feeling is almost, universal, because you are freed. Most people that pass over feel so liberated because they're in the real world. And this is not the real world. This is something, that we have to understand. This is just literally a temporary walk through. The soul has elected to walk through this passage of time, but time is illusionary to the other side. And, when we step back over there, I have seen the other side myself on one occasion, and the only way I can explain it to you is that it is more real than here. And it's like Christmas Day. It's like you're freed. It's like
really?
You feel love for the very first time ever within your life, for real love. And it's an incredible experience. But unfortunately, when we come back, we just have to get on with it. And I think that it's important that you hold on to the beliefs that you have, that you are the individual that you are, and that you fight for your beliefs, and you fight for that creation process of what you want within your life. Unfortunately, we're going through a stage where that is not quite possible at the moment with a lot of people, with what's going on, which is awful. And it paints a really bad light to everything we're trying to bring and promote within this world. Every time something good comes along, there's always something even worse that gate crashes it and brings us down to a lower level and forces us into some kind of submission before we can pick up the pieces again. Yeah. But you've got to understand that we're all part of something incredible, and if you're on the good side, you can't go wrong. Trust me on that one.
Yeah. It must have been like waking up from one of those lovely dreams. You ever have that when you're having a lovely dream and you wake up and you think, oh, I want to go back to that dream.
Yeah, the experience happened when I was a kid, and when I nearly drowned. And the thing is, the only way I can explain it, there was no one there to meet me. That was quite nice, wasn't it? I'll have a go at them for that. But I found myself in a world that was so beautiful, and I saw water for the first time, and people laugh at me and say, what do you mean you saw water for the first time? Well, I actually could connect with this creeper that was on a wall, and I saw the water, and it was so beautiful, and everything was so real, and it was like I had no worries. There was no need to worry. It was like it was all okay. It's a feeling that we find hard to replicate here, because we're living a life that's so stressful. You wake up in the morning, you've got to get up, you've got to invent yourself, you've got to go out into life, and at the moment most of us can't, but go out to the stage of life, get through the struggles of the day and come back. We're exhausted. But over there it's a completely different feeling of liberation. And people say, one person, I'll never forget this, it's always stuck in my head, they said, well, I think I'd die of boredom. And I think, well, that's a human thought. Remember that when consciousness returns back to the other side, you will no longer be in your human form. There will be a greater understanding of universal love and awareness that we only forget temporarily here. So I think what's happening, David, is that through our birth, through our incarnation, and I think through our life as we're recording the experiences, because that's all that we're doing, we take nothing back with us except our memories and our experiences. And I think that once those experiences and memories are filtered back into the one, the Godhead, for want of a better word, that perhaps the Godhead is learning and expanding more on the creation process through us and as an extension of itself. So this process continues, and I think, thank God, it is a short journey here, because, can you think and feel how people would be very unhappy with this life and they want to get out? Yeah. And I think that through death comes retribution. And I think also that our eyes will be opened, and I really believe that, because not only have I experienced a tiny glimpse of that, but I'm aware of that. And so I totally empathize with people who, like Jill, lovely Jill, that, you know, these experiences have a profound effect and they're never forgotten. It's always like a constant reminder in the back of the mind to say, well, you know, why did I come back when I didn't want to come back? But on a soul level, perhaps your soul, the real you, decided that you still had a job to do.
Yeah.
And if you look at your life with the, you know, children and grandchildren, and think about how that affects the life that you're all living now, I think that's quite prevalent, you see.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you a funny little story. When she was a very young child, I may have told you this story before, but she told me, she doesn't know how it happened, but she always had this name David in her head, weirdly. Yeah. And she doesn't know where it came from, but she had a fascination with the name David. So whether there was some sort of spiritual connection there, I don't know. Maybe that's what it was. She had to come back for me. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I think that, you know, we hear a lot of these...
I know it sounds a bit stupid to anyone listening out there.
No. Soulmates, you know, the thing is, at the end of the day, that it's not only about, you know, we don't randomly incarnate down here and just get on with it. I think that there is purpose and design through the construction of our lives. And I think perhaps that the unfolding dramas are meant to happen, because it's showing all of us what love really means, what light really means, what empathy really means. And I think the only way we can understand that is when we are matched by diversity, or, you know, an omnipresent energy that threatens that. And I think we as a human species operate much better when we're challenged. I think that this is why we come into this body and why we go through these experiences. And I think at the end of the day, without an experience, we'll have nothing to write about. There'll be nothing to record. There'll be nothing to understand on a deeper level of the soul and a much deeper level of the soul here. So it shapes us, I think, into better individuals and some not so. But we have to ask ourselves the questions. You have actors on a stage. And with any film or drama, you'll always have some nasty piece of work. But you know what makes me laugh? More times than not, the watcher tends to admire and love the badder person than the good one.
That's kind of right. Yeah, you're actually right there. We all used to love JR, didn't we? And
and Darth Vader as well. And, you know, people love Darth Vader, yet he went around killing everyone. But, you know, at the end of the day, I think it's reminding us of the powers and the strengths that we can have as being actors and actresses ourselves within this life, by playing different roles all the time. And I think that, you know, when we get to the point where we find that it's illusionary, but we've learned from it, I think at that point we'll understand more about what it is to be in this form, and also spiritually, of what that means to be over there as well. So, you know, I think, you know, although it's hard and you have to be very careful when you're stating these facts. People saying, oh, Philip says it's all right because, you know, we're only here for a short time. That doesn't help them much. But I think when you've had the experience, it changes a lot for you. And I totally appreciate those people that haven't had the experiences that deny it. I get that. And I always say to someone, if you don't believe, well, I'll shake your hand and I'll just say that's fine, because I'm not here to change your belief system. Why would I want to do that? I've had no end of people coming forward very nastily and saying, you know, oh, you know, they've never met me, they've never had a reading, but they instantly state, oh, mediums are fakes and frauds. Well, not all of them, mate.
There are some out there, obviously.
It's the same with UFO. It's the same with everywhere. You'll get some people coming in claiming all sorts, and the proof's in the pudding, is it not? And, you know, I think we can ascertain through one another how we come across and how we are as human beings and the way we view things. So when you're dealing with the spiritual element, we also have to be careful, because we don't want to step on any toes, because a lot of people might, you know, be offended, especially different sects of religious, you know, links like the Christians or the Muslims or whatever. But, you know, I embrace all forms of ideologies as long as they don't harm, control, or destroy people, David. I've always got an open heart and mind to that. But I've seen the other side. And my understanding is that it's okay. It's fine to be who you are. You know, don't fight it. Don't argue about it. You're going to get there anyway. I always say to people, don't worry, you'll make it. They look at me and they don't really know what I'm saying, but I'm saying, don't worry, we'll get there. We'll make it.
Well, one of the main things that I think I've learned from knowing you and Ronnie, and I think one of the things that I will be looking forward to is when it comes to my time, I'm going to have friends like you and Ronnie forever. because we'll always be friends on the other side too, and that's kind of something that makes life worth living, don't you think?
Oh, David, let me tell you something now. That is wonderful. And the same as, Ronnie and I never boast, but I'm very proud. I'm always proud of all the souls that I know. But there is one film that I always loved, and it was Cocoon. Now, David Saperstein, who wrote the book, he wrote a trilogy of them actually. They made one of his books into a Hollywood film directed by Ron Howard, who was on Happy Days years ago. Now, in the film Cocoon, what I loved, it promoted the message of everlasting life, of youthfulness, and the scene at the end when the UFO is coming down to collect the old folks because they felt like they were dejected by society, and they were going up in the boat and towards the ship that was bringing them up. That is the most beautiful story, and David Saperstein has stated to us both that our mum has got first-class ticket on the Antarian mothership. And I think, David, you and me and Ronnie and Jill will all be there with everyone else. We're going up there, so we've all got our tickets.
I think I'll probably go maybe in a few years, but a little bit before you look, so I'm a little bit older, but I'll be waiting for you on the other side, I know that, and be looking forward to seeing you all again.
Well, you can tell them from me on the other side that I want a refund.
Yeah, I think we'll all be asking for a refund.
Yeah, I think we'll all be going to go straight to the bar afterwards and get some real spirits in us.
I think it'll be, I'm not going back there again.
Well, I always say, even the work I do, I do have a sense of humour, and, you've got to laugh about this sometimes, and even some of the really heated debates I've seen with people, and I'm thinking, cool down, it's okay, it's fine, no one's taking your belief system away from you. That's very dangerous. If you don't believe in it, that's absolutely fine. It's the same with UFO research. People say to me it's a load of rubbish, and I'm thinking, well, that's okay, but you have to have the experience.
What can be rubbish about any type of research? Any type of real research is not rubbish. That's the thing, isn't it? It's as long as you're going to do real research and not just believe something you hear on the television.
That's right, David. Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with you. But it's good to have a sense of humour as well. I think that makes us more human.
Yeah. It might make us a little bit nutty to some people, but
yeah. Well, I don't care. I'm not bothered at all. I've got no airs or graces. I've got no ego.
I tell you and Ronnie, I've said it so many times. You're two of the loveliest people I've ever met. I mean, really mean it. I'm not just saying that.
Thank you. You as well. You and Jill as well. And then all the other people. They're so fantastic. Joined together. It's like you feel at home because we're on the same level. I think from the same soul link, dare I say that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we've been brought together from the other side. I don't know. I mean, I've learned such a lot spiritually, I think, from you, personally.
Yeah, well, I don't have all the answers, but I can only talk from experience and what I've gained from those who have crossed over. It is an interesting process of communication. It's silent, but it kind of like teaches us that there are areas of the mind which is amazing, the brain that can be opened to these other realities. And if you train the mind, like remote viewing, astral projection, they are a reality because they've been recorded since time began. And, what's different? They're still around today. They haven't gone away. So, it tells us something that the phenomena is real and it's not something that's just manufactured.
Indeed, yeah. Anyway, as we're getting towards the end now, your own show, Twin Souls, with Ronnie, it's back soon, isn't it? Or is it already back?
Oh, it's back on now. So we're back on there. We did go through some illness. But we're much better now, so we're just getting our way through that, David, yes.
I didn't know if your first one, has it gone out yet, your first show?
Yes, it did. We're doing, the second one went out with Philip Mantle.
Oh, of course, yeah. No, I must apologise, I've just realised I've missed it, yeah.
And that's all right, we've got Dr. Ian Rubenstein, a brilliant guy. He's a medium and also a doctor, deals with the medical profession, a brilliant bloke. So we've done the recording for him. He's coming on the end of this month, and then we've got some other souls coming on as well.
Yeah, I've been trying to, I've got my fingers in so many pies at the moment, I'm trying to keep up with things. Yeah, I know your show is brilliant, and as you know, I had Ronnie on a few weeks ago.
Yes, I did, I heard
that was a great show, and I really enjoyed that. But anyway, before we pack up, let's have another little go at your book. It's called Guardians of the Dead, and where is it available on Amazon?
Yes, yeah, well, I mean, you know, I've been published under publishing companies before, but unfortunately, very sadly, John Day from Keppelbaum Publishing Limited passed over, so I lost my publisher, so I thought, you know, I'm going to go through Amazon. I did deliberate. I spoke to Neil and, you know, Neil Geddes-Ward and deliberated, and I thought, you know, I'm just going to do it through Amazon, because at the end of the day, it's my little baby, it's my little project,
sure.
and I'm really proud of it. And of course, I've got a new UFO one coming out in the new year, New the Public Deceive, the Grand UFO Deception, which the UFO royalty, the man himself, Philip Mental, is bringing out then. So I'm really looking forward to that as well, David.
That's right, because we've done this show the wrong way round, really, because we did a show a few months back, didn't we, about that book coming out earlier in the year, and now we're doing this book, which is out now.
Meant to be, David. It's meant to be. If it's meant to happen, it's fine.
Yeah,
you know, it's
just the way it is. So really, you've got the two books coming out on Amazon. That I think what I'll do when I put this show out on my Paranormal Dimensions page, I'll actually put both books on there again. And links to both of them, because it's actually doing quite well again, isn't it? Your new one.
Yeah, sure. It's really doing really great, and I'm very honoured. And it's not just about, you know, what we do. It's all the other people, all the other souls out there who help and support. That is something I really value. I really love that, David. It's like a little family, you know, when you all come together and you all connect together. And I think it's wonderful because, you know, I was born a freak and I'll go out like a freak. So it doesn't bother me.
I'll just say now, thank you for the little mention in there. It's very nice of you to actually think of.
Oh, you're welcome, David. You're welcome.
I'll just do my very small piece in the world, but anyway, Philip, it's been fantastic having you on, and good luck with your new show and your books and everything. And I'm really looking forward to seeing you again soon. We've been trying to plan this for a while now, but with all this lockdown and the virus, and God knows what else, it's stopped all that. And as you know, we're moving shortly, so
yes.
Hopefully we'll get together.
Well, good luck with all of that, and we'll see you as soon as you've settled in, because I think that would be better.
Hopefully I'll get to see you before Christmas. It'd be nice.
Yeah, that would be wonderful, David.
We'll come up and see you if we get a chance.
Bless you both. Thank you so much, David, for having me on your wonderful show. I'm really very honoured.
Well, it's the other way around. I'm honoured to have you on, Philip. You're royalty in my mind.
Oh no! And listen, I've got to do it. There was a chat before we close. I've got to say it. Quentin Crisp, who was a wonderful guy many years ago, went to America, and in his British accent he would say, and I've got to say it for your listeners because it would make them smile, and I'll try and do his voice. He'll say, "Never give up an interview."
Excellent. And what I'm going to do, I shall chop that out and use that in a few intros.
Yeah, right. I try. I used to mimic people when I was younger, so I can kind of like try and take on voices. And I thought, I've got to get Quentin's. I've got to get his voice. So
excellent.
God love him.
Yeah, I do actually remember. I don't know too much about Quentin Crisp, but I do remember the name. He was in the news quite a lot, wasn't he?
Oh, very fanboy, but he didn't give a damn about what anyone thought about him. And I love all these wonderful, weird people. And of course, at the end of the day, they're showing us different aspects of what we really represent.
Yeah.
And, you know, I really love all these people that come across as eccentric, and I think they're so wonderful. You know, without them, the world will be a very dull place indeed, I can tell you.
No, I agree with you. I mean, in some cases, it's a shame some of them are not still around, because they did actually colour a world in different ways to what it is now.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, thanks again, Philip. It's been better.
And you, David. Thank you so much. God bless.
I'm looking forward to seeing you again.
You've been listening to Paranormal Dimensions on the Paranormal UK Radio Network. I'm David Young. Hope you'll join us again next week. Thank you. Goodbye.
Paranormal Dimensions is as bright and powerful as our celestial star, the sun. And although it's expending thousands of pounds of energy every minute of the day, have no fear. There's plenty left.
Dimensions is a regular feature on Mondays on the Paranormal UK radio network.